Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Happy Thursday. Can you believe it's almost the end of the week? If you're joining us on the replay, a big hello to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's wonderful to have you with us. I always love to see you there. And a big welcome to also my friends at Modern Mom, because you know we're streaming to you each day now as well. Let's start with the market because I have a very special guest. I can't wait to introduce you. So the Dow closed up 57 points, the Nasdaq up 140 points, S&P up 17 as well. The S&P rose to another record high as the tech-heavy Nasdaq also rallied, with most of the big tech names reaching higher levels. We're talking Apple, Netflix, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, all the usuals. However, some of the news that came out today wasn't all peachy because we had disappointing jobless claims. As you know, Thursdays is where we hear the job numbers. The week ending April 3rd last week, unfortunately, it was pretty bad. And we were expecting 694,000 Americans filing for unemployment for the first time. But actually, the number got closer to 745,000. So lot to talk about, lot to look at and then figure out when things are going to be back to normal. Here in California, in fact, scientists have identified 5 different types of double mutation in COVID cases. And recently, you've probably seen an uptick on social and traditional media, also on crimes being committed against Asian Americans. And that's actually what I want to do today. I really want to have a conversation, a very organic and honest conversation on this. In fact, there's been over 3,800 anti-Asian racist incidents, mostly against women, in the past year that have been reported. And that's a key thing to talk about, because it's important to point out that the Asian community has a history of underreporting crimes. They just want to just sort of forget it, and they don't want to go through the trouble, or they don't want to bother people. They don't want to talk about the crimes that have been committed against us. And analysis of police department statistics reveal that here in the United States, there's been a significant hike in anti-Asian hate crimes last year across all the major cities, especially in New York and especially here in California. A report shared that the Center for Study of Hate and Extremism at the California State University San Bernardino showed that hate crimes in 16 of America's largest cities targeting Asian Americans rose by nearly 150%. In the county that I'm here coming to you from, there's also been a 10-fold increase on hate crimes since the pandemic as well. So a lot of things happening. And, I know we talk about technology, we talk about business, we talk about all these trends, but this is something that we should actually have a conversation about, because even last week, 700 plus tech industry leaders in Silicon Valley took part in the Tech for AAPI event, which was an online rally organized by several tech powerhouses talking about the violence against Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders. They had Adam Mosseri, he's the head of Instagram, Deb Liu, CEO of Ancestry.com, and so many others is in this 3-hour event to discuss how the tech industry can help combat anti-racism. I actually love to see something like that happening in the financial industry as well. More of these sort of discussions. But today, I'm joined by my friend, and you know her very well. We have her here on the show quite frequently. Fellow live streaming host, Stephanie Liu. Stephanie, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great now that you're here. As a reminder for those of you who are new to meeting Stephanie for the first time, Stephanie is the founder of Captivate On Command and the host of Lights Camera Live, an amazing live streaming show where she helps brands succeed on camera. She's been named as one of the top 50 digital marketing thought leaders, and her work has been recognized and awarded by Forbes, Online Marketing Media, PR Daily, and many, many others. She's also the co-author of The Ultimate Guide to Social Media by Entrepreneur Press, which is available, I should say, as her friend on Amazon. So definitely check that out. It's actually one of my favorite books. But I will tell you, nothing quite is the same as getting a chance to actually spend some time with Stephanie. I learned so much from her each and every time. But Stephanie, this is different, right? This is not the typical conversations that we have. We don't normally talk about race issues, social issues. We usually get to talk about live streaming and the things that you're so good at. But thank you so much for being a part of this let's start with you. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Me, I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. I would say with everything that's happening around, especially in the Asian community, it's definitely changed how my family goes out, how we are spending time with our elders and whatnot. So it's different. But I feel like we've been adapting and adapting over the last year. And so this is just another one of those things that we are hyper vigilant on, just super paying attention to.
Yeah, it's something we're super paying attention to. And I know, I know just like yourself, my mom, we talked about this a little bit on some of the other social platforms. Our parents now, my parents are in their 70s. And one of the things with the pandemic, they can't really see their grandkids. One of the things that still makes her feel normal is the ability to go to the grocery store and buy vegetables. That's her thing. She likes to pick her vegetable, her fruit has to be perfect, has to be big and healthy and all that stuff. But now, I have conversations and she's like, oh, I'll just run to the store. I'm like, I don't know if you should be running to the store. I mean, she lives in a very nice area, but there's certainly been an uptick in crimes where people are getting attacked in parking lots. And just because they're Asian and for a long time now, Asian, especially our elders, are getting attacked because they're sort of easy targets, right? We're seeing this not only in the East Coast, but you've probably seen a lot of cases in San Francisco. Like maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Like what have you been seeing?
What I've been seeing is things around holidays where, when, Lunar New Year, when you're trying to pull money out of like the ATM machine because they want to give red envelopes to their grandkids and whatnot. And that's the perfect opportunity that some people would take advantage of. And so what I'm seeing, especially in our family, is very much, do you have to go to the store? Or favorite pastimes of just going outside to walk around the block just to get fresh air because we've been indoors for so long. It's, well, can I go outside? Should someone go outside with me? Even me, sometimes when I'm thinking about walking my dog, I will walk my dog during the day. But at nighttime, when I used to go all the way around the block, now I'm just like, let's just hang out in front and then I'll come back in if I need to. So it's been really interesting. We're very cautious, I would say, especially in my family. We do have those conversations. It's very much, what store are you going to? Who are you going with? Okay. Does your daughter have to go with you? Because if not, then just keep her at home with daddy and they'll be fine. So it's been a change.
It's been a big change. And I like that you use that word. I think it's completely changed. Not only do we have to worry about the pandemic like everybody else, but these changes, like walking your dog only in front of your house, that's unfortunate because you should feel safe at least to go up and down the street. My mom, for example, she says we had this conversation and she says, it's okay. I'm going to the grocery store and I'm going to wear tennis shoes. And she says, in case someone attacks me, I can run away. I'm like, Mom, you're like 78 years old. Yeah. I don't think that's a great strategy, right? So I said, you know what? I'll just order. And she's like, well, I really want to go to Costco. I miss going to Costco. Now that I'm fully vaccinated, I want to go to Costco. I need to get rice. I need to get avocados. I'm like, rice is a 50-pound bag. Like, where are you going to park? How are you going to get in your car? You're like an easy target. And they don't think that way. And then, so I was so stressed out. I shared this on Twitter. A lot of people, responded very positively. And I actually, spent the extra money, had Instacart deliver 2 bags of rice, right? I'm like, Mom, you don't have to go buy rice for a really long time from Costco. But those are the things, like it's already been a very sad situation, but it's hitting home because I know, Stephanie, you and I, obviously, we have our own shows. We know a lot of people of all different nationalities. We're a part of a very diverse and very embracing and supportive community. And so sometimes we forget that, hey, we're reminded that, oh yeah, that's right, we are Asian, and so we have to think, not that that's not a reminder. I know it's kind of funny, but sometimes you forget, because I remember right before the pandemic shut us all down, my last trip to New York, to when we filmed Level Up and NASDAQ studios in Times Square. I remember at that time, there were already reports saying that if you're Asian and you try and order an Uber, the Uber driver has a tendency to cancel your ride. They won't pick you up because they felt like if you were Asian, there was a chance that you were a COVID carrier. Stephanie, did you hear this?
I had heard about that, yes. And I've heard of other things, and I've personally experienced it myself. Right, I told you the story about how my daughter and I last March, and we were going to Starbucks just because I hadn't had like a Starbucks drink for a very long time. We had been cooped up for a very long time, and so we went out, and we had our face mask because it was mandated in California that we needed to wear a face mask. And at one point, I saw this woman who was just staring at us. And I thought, oh, maybe that's a friend. Maybe that's someone I haven't seen for a while because we were under quarantine for so long. And so I just kept peeking. But then the wind carried her voice. And what was actually happening is that she was talking to her friend, saying very derogatory things about my daughter and I. Didn't even know us. And I was like, oh, you're not a friend. And so holding the hand of my 5-year-old daughter, I was like, okay, we just need to go where we need to go, get what we need, and then just go back home. And so it's been interesting. It's been very interesting. And I'm thankful that I could shield her from that a little bit, but there's other things where, she's going to be going back to school soon because the school's opening up, and there's just so many things that you think about, right? So many things that you think about.
So many things you think about. I mean, as a parent, you're already worried about things like mask and antibacterial and everything. Yes. But now you're also concerned about potential, hateful language, right?
Bullying.
That she might bullying. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I know when I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, I was one of just a handful of Asian kids our entire school. And I remember to this day in 2nd grade and 3rd grade and all the way to 6th grade, the bullies that attacked me verbally. And I remember not talking in elementary school for years because I was so self-conscious. But I remember those bullies to this day that said such terrible things about me simply because, number 1, I was quiet. Number 2, I was very shy. And number 3, I was Asian. And to a point that this is actually, I told this to my husband and kids recently. It didn't even dawn on me, but this is how long it was. But I remember there was a Japanese student who had transferred from Japan to our school, right? And I am not Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, but I remember the principal called me into the principal's office and said, we need you to be his translator. And I was probably in 2nd grade at the time. And I remember thinking, oh, okay. So I tried to speak Chinese to him because I thought maybe he was Chinese, right? That's why they need a translator. And he spoke Japanese to me, but somehow we made it work. But the school never even took the time to ask what languages we spoke. It's just, they just knew that maybe we looked similarly. And that was back then, but I think that is still going on today. And it's all those little things that sort of add up. They sort of add up. And I see our friend Mike Alton, gotta say, is here. By the way, Stephanie, your BFF. Gotta say hello to him for sure. But Stephanie, I know this is something that I think many people who know you and I probably didn't expect us to come together to talk about this. But I think that we should, So I'm glad that you agreed to do this with me. Actually, there was an article I want to share with you too. I'm sure you've seen this, but it came out from the Harvard Business Review just a couple days ago. And it's titled, What Your Asian Employees Need Right Now. What do they need from you right now? And we just saw this earlier with Black Lives Matter. This is something that really hurts, right? It's hurting our elderly. It's helping younger people who are in New York on subways, in San Francisco, just walking down the street. You and I have changed our patterns. You can't just go anywhere without telling your whole family. I'm sure your husband's really concerned. I'll tell you, my husband doesn't even let me leave the house by myself anymore, right? And if I go to visit my office, he wants me to go through one door versus another door. And my assistant, who I love, she actually gave me this self-defense item to hold, which, things that we don't think about.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, I'm sure a lot of people watching you now didn't expect you to have this conversation with me. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of there are some dear friends of mine, right? Like the co-authors that are very close to me. When they heard about what happened with that massacre, they were the first ones to reach out. And I was just like, I am just processing this right now because it's hard to talk about. Because I think for me, it was really just, I need to check in with my family first. And I need to check in with my family who also live in Texas. That was like my immediate thought versus like, oh, I need to go on social media because there are so many things that, you have to protect your energy. There's only so much that you could possibly do even as a content creator, being on camera all the time. And I think just even talking about it was like, oh, lump in the throat, right? Lump in the throat. Let me process this. Let me do what it is that I have to do because I've got school for the little one, check in with the family, see how they're doing. And then even then, it's just like, I can't believe that happened. So scary. So, wow,
It is. It is so scary, right? And you don't know exactly how to process. You know that you feel like I'm getting texts from my friends and family, articles and whatnot. And like at some point you're like, goodness, I don't, like you said, I don't know if I should be even leaving the house right now. I'm not sure. I've got neighbors that wear MAGA hats that walk right in front of my house. And before it didn't seem that scary. Now it's seeming a lot more scary. And it's like, and then things happen and you're starting to think like, goodness, maybe I got to reconsider where we're living, what we're doing, and everything else like that. But I'm glad we're having this conversation because, I think a lot of companies and business leaders, or people who are not Asian are wondering, how do I bridge this conversation? You said your co-authors were wonderful. They reached out. They wanted to talk to you. I don't even know. I'm generalizing here, but I will say for myself, I tend not to share things that are bothering me so much, right? We stay very professional. You're agreeing that.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I would
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah. I think we do a pretty good job at compartmentalizing things because we try to focus on what we need to do and get things done, and then we'll address it later. And so then we'll have those deeper discussions with our loved ones and our close friends. But I will tell you, I was so thankful that my friends had reached out to me just to be like, hey, this is what I heard. How is this impacting you? And that was like, oh, just to have that support. I wish everyone has that type of support, and employers and brands to reach out to your employees because it's not business as usual. It's not. It impacts us in different ways. There are times where I'm just like, should I even be doing a live stream
Yeah.
when something just happened? And you just have to be considerate of it. As most people like in social media, when something happens, like what happened at like Capitol Hill earlier this year, it's like pause everything that's happening on social media. So when something like that massacres, and it's just you want to stay quiet and compartmentalize and process it in the way that you need to process it. There's nothing. I've seen other things on social media where people were calling out other Asian Americans like, hey, you're not saying anything about like stop Asian hate. And it's like, let people process it the way that they need to process it, because there is kind of like a chain of command of who you need to reach out to make sure that they're okay before it's like, okay, now let me just blast everything out on social media and be on camera, because some people just aren't ready. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. 100%. And I will say what you mention earlier, I think is so important because you said, like certain people reached out, your co-authors, your friends. That was really telling because I was with you there. I wasn't sure whether to talk about this, because I didn't feel like I was ready to talk about it. It was just so much. And it still is so much. Every day we're seeing articles of people getting hurt, things being said, and it's in like our neighborhoods, and our like literally down like a mile from our house. It's like my parents' house. They I guess there was some sort of Stop Asian Hate rally, and some guy drove their Honda Civic trying to run people over. And this is in a very nice part of town, right? These are things that some of them are reported, but they're not on mainstream media. It is really overwhelming. But I will say this, I was surprised that more people didn't acknowledge or reach out to me personally. And I was actually surprised by that because I feel like it's important, but maybe like they felt like, I don't know. I guess those who reached out to me, like you said, those that reached out, I'll always remember. But I guess I was a little surprised that there wasn't more because it is such a big deal and so many people are getting hurt. And we have had to change our mindset, how we take our children out, where we let our children go play, right? And it doesn't seem like it's improving, although we're seeing a lot of companies step up, make donations, take a social stance. That I love that. I think that's key. But so the Harvard Business Review, they actually recommended 4 things, and I think we should talk about this. The first thing is what they said is what Stephanie said is acknowledge, right? That we recognize, but not only recognize it just plain on social media, which is what Stephanie and I love. Like we're all about the social media, but to actually reach out, like I think that would have been powerful if the CEO of the company that is the back office to my firm, if he had just reached out, send a text or send an email, I think that would have been powerful. Number 2 is to be available, to have a conversation, right? To be there. And number 3 is to discuss. I think that's like what we're doing today, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 4, which is the big one, right, is to commit. To commit. And to be honest with you, I'm going to say this. We are doing this live stream right now. It's going on 8 different platforms. And I see even on YouTube right now, we're already seeing one very inappropriate and rude comment. I mean, that's unfortunately the state of the situation that we're in. And we're actually, I don't know. I don't even know what to say at this point. So I'm going to let you go.
I think it is important for companies to think about how to create a thriving workplace, right? And knowing that your employees just aren't employees that show up to do their work. We're multifaceted. There's different things that happens in our lives. And if you really want to support your employees, know that they are bringing their whole selves to the office. And so talking about what happens in the news is very important. I remember when I worked at an agency, and in one event where there was a school shooting that had happened, we all just paused because it was not business as usual. And some people just were rattled and needed some time to process and do what it is that they had to do. And I respected that. I was so thankful to be in that type of workplace where they understood that, some deadlines just might not be important today because you have to call someone and make sure that they're okay. And so those 4 principles that were mentioned in the Harvard Business Review, I think that's very helpful to have. Acknowledge what's happening in the world right now and go out there and be an ally. Again, my co-authors were amazing. I had friends that reached out to me on Instagram just to check in to see how I was doing. I checked in on my friends. Some of us, we don't, I feel like the way we express is going to be very different. Some people can live stream. Some people can be on video. Some people will repost images on Instagram or retweet things on Twitter because that's easy for me, or even just doing Instagram stories just to let out that frustration. And it's helpful. And I think having these articles come out, these toolkits even that I've seen of how to talk about this, not only with in my circle, it would be like my elders, ensuring that they're safe, coming up with like safety plans, honestly. And then also talking to my own daughter about like, okay, this is why we have to be a little bit extra careful, things to notice, because she's very protected in that environment. But for sure in a workplace, understanding, nuances, how people are feeling, how to talk about it, how to address it. I think that's always helpful. So I feel like HR teams, human resources, leadership teams, people on your executive teams need to pay attention as well.
Yes, they do need to pay attention as well. That's really powerful. And I love that. I think, one thing I still struggle with, and I don't know exactly how to bridge this, but I think we'll figure it out as we go along, is how do we talk to our kids about race and racism, most importantly, not so much race, but racism, because I know you've done a great job with your child. I know we're very proud of the fact that our children really are very good with all races, right? They will be, they're comfortable sitting next to talking someone who doesn't look like them. And sometimes they don't even realize that, sometimes you'll ask them, who's in your class? Tell me about, like, I don't know. He's got brown hair. I mean, that's the extent of what they know, right? He's got hair like they only know the hair thing. And I love that. There's that innocence about it. They just know, Joshua or Pete, whatever the name is really fun to play with, is into Star Wars or into whatever, just like me. And yet it could change, right? Because not all kids have the same parents and we may not have the same style of teaching. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, Stephanie, if you've thought about that. I'm still seeking guidance and trying to learn more from like Jeremiah and Mike, who's done a great job with his kids too. Like, how do you bridge that conversation? I mean, we may not have the answer here. Curious if you've thought about this.
I've definitely thought about it, because I find that where racist beliefs usually come up from, they're adopted from values, beliefs, and attitudes that are usually passed down. And it could be from the media and things that they're watching that could have that type of effect. I still remember reading about that article where the pandemic had just started, and this little, I think it was like a 12-year-old boy, got bullied because at the time the phrase Kung Flu was being used so much. And it was so crazy to think about that, because the pandemic affects everyone. And so what we're doing with my daughter is very much like, be mindful of who you're hanging out with and what they're saying, because even at a very young age, you know what's right from wrong, and you know what makes people feel good. She's developed empathy, really. And if there's anything that just makes you feel uncomfortable, be sure to talk, to mommy and daddy, or to your teacher, to an adult, someone that you can actually trust. And so even her just like going back to school, I was telling my best friends this, she was nervous about it. She's only 5 years old. And I was asking about her, what do you think about going back to school? And she's like, I'm excited, but I'm also scared because I don't want to get sick. Right. And when it was one of those things where, like, as a parent, I was like, okay, let me understand what's going on with my child right now. And how can I help her feel safe? And so she asked for certain things like extra hand sanitizer, extra face mask, things of this sort. But what I really, really appreciated, Winnie, was the fact that my daughter could just be so open to me at a very young age, that she didn't have to compartmentalize that fear, that she could say it and feel as if she has that support, that someone's going to be there like, okay, let's figure this out. And what do we have to do to make this right?
Yeah. What do we have to do to make this right? That's powerful. And it's so true. Our kids are so scared, just like everybody else's kids, of the coronavirus, right? And anybody can get the virus. We certainly had nothing to do with it, you and I, and yet, I think most people know that. Most people are good people, and they mostly know this. But it is really good. I see Wendy is sharing that it's good to let children know they can always leave a friendship that doesn't feel good. Wendy, that's really powerful. I'm going to make sure to share that today. And you're absolutely right. Your 5-year-old, she's like looking towards kindergarten, like such an exciting time typically, but she's worried about not getting sick. My 12-year-old, his best friend just wanted to do tennis lessons with him now. And so we talked to him. Normally he'd be like, oh yeah, I love tennis. I want to play with, his best friend. And he's like, and then we noticed hesitation. We're like, well, what's going on? And he said same thing. He's like, I'm just worried about the coronavirus. I don't know. I'm not vaccinated. I don't know and it's so sad, because this is what our kids are already dealing with. So we don't want to get something else, but we need them to be mindful if something happens, that, your daughter can continue to be honest and open with you quickly, so we can address these things as parents. So Thank you so much, Stephanie. This was incredible. I know, definitely not, I'm going to say, if you haven't already, definitely take a moment to follow Stephanie on her website. Well, let me ask you this, Stephanie, where do you think people should follow? Because she is so brilliant with all things social media, with marketing, with branding. She works a lot of different businesses and different types of industries. In fact, I will tell you selfishly, before we went live, I took about a segment of her time to ask her expertise before we jumped on this very important topic. So where do we go, Stephanie?
I would say if you want to learn more about live streaming and social media in general, lightscameralive.com is the best place to go. You'll find all of the shows, all of the show notes and resources there to really help you step into the spotlight and really take your brand from unknown to unforgettable. For those of you that want to build a relationship, because I do find that there are resources in relationships, best place to find me is also LinkedIn. So just type in Stephanie Liu. You see my name right there. Type in Stephanie Liu and you'll see me in the cover photo, and let's connect there.
That would be great. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for your time. I know you are juggling so many things each and every day. And best of luck to your daughter going back to school. Hopefully she loves it. I'm sure her teacher is going to be awesome. Her friends are going to be so happy to see her. And I know she's going to be very stylish too, because mommy will make sure. She's really stylish. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. Also, for those of you who are joining us, watching, supporting our program, and especially today, our topic today, please take a moment, if you can, to share the show with those that you love and care about. And as a reminder, you can find full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun on NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We have another platform coming very soon, so I'll be sharing with you on that in a few more weeks. But be well, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Take care now. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.